Thanks so much for having me, guys. I started in 2015, went full-time 2018, and I sold about 172 million so far. To date, I did about 43 million last year. I do quite a bit of new construction. I think the last 2 years I've done about 20 each year. So I think total from when I started, it was about, I think I'd done like 75 to 80 new construction, I think. So, not like crazy amounts, but definitely still enough to, be very familiar with the process and things like that. So, I kind of wanted the title to be somewhat like New Construction 101, along with best practices, because I did want to kind of talk about some basics as well, because I don't know how familiar people are with the process and the basics. So I was going to go over that and then talk about more, strategies and things like that as well. So hopefully you guys can, you don't get too bored from the beginning if you guys are veterans. So basically, let's start off with spec homes versus to be built. So spec homes are basically homes that the builder has already constructed. They've already picked out their structural options and their design center options. So versus to be built, which is basically what it sounds like. It's built from scratch. You pick out the lot, you pick out all the options that you want, and it's totally different because of the timeline. So if it's to be built, obviously, generally it's going to be a 6 to 8 month build time from the time you do a contract. Obviously, it's not set in stone. If there's supply chain issues, if there's difficulty getting utilities in like gas and electric, which seems to be the biggest hang up for builders in terms of being able to predict timelines. It could be a 10-month build, or it could even be a year. But generally, I tell my people, if somebody's lease is up and they're wanting it to be built, you obviously have to go backwards. And I say, you need at least 6 to 8 months or so for a to be built. And then obviously for spec, it's usually within a month or 2 months. It might be even 3 months, but usually once a home is built, a builder is going to want that person to move in. Why would they build spec homes? Builders do it because they want to appeal not only to people who have the time to close later, they know that there's people that need to buy right now. So that's why they go ahead and build these spec homes. I personally love spec homes because not only does a designer that they have in-house pick out the options for you and all the design center choices, and they do an excellent job, they also price it a lot lower than a to be built, because once you start piecemealing all these different things, it could end up being a lot higher in price than a spec home where it's like it's all done and they just want to sell it because they're carrying the costs. So spec homes, I think, are a great option. I always tell my clients to consider it. Every time I do to be built, I'm first of all overwhelmed with the sheer number of design choices, but number two, I always regret some of the things that I pick for whatever reason. But I have a spec home now, and everything that they've chosen, I'm like, it's amazing, it's awesome. So they do a great job. So again, keep that in mind. Yeah, so the carrying cost is what makes a builder want to kind of unload these spec homes. So now let's talk about like base price plus all the additional options that come included. So there's actually a funny story. I think it was Hillside and Broadlands with Van Meter, where they had said homes starting in the 800s. And then by the time they actually began sales, the market had changed so much during COVID that they realized they were starting it way too low. So they ended up pricing at $899, $990 starting price, even though they said they were starting in the 8. So everybody's thinking, oh, it's going to be 800, 820. No, it started at $899, $990. But the point of that is builders can a lot of times start at a very low price. And just because you start at that low price definitely does not mean that you end there. Builders are trying to advertise a low price to get buyers interested and get you through the door. And then you go through the model home and you're dazzled by the tons of money that they spent staging. that, you know, you'll be more willing to pay higher once all these additional options are put in. For example, I was at Toll Brothers and the sales agent told me that they spent $10,000 on one lighting fixture. So, you know, people walk in and they're just like, oh my God, I want this house. Then when they buy it, it's like, wait, this is not like what I saw. So you also have to keep that in mind. But from the base price, you have to add several things. There's about 4 different things I always tell my buyers to keep in mind. The first is the lot premium. So what's the lot premium? It's, you know, is if you're going to buy a house with a lake behind it or in a cul-de-sac, obviously that lot is much nicer than a lot where your backyard backs to another house. So maybe that one's going to be a 0 lot premium or a $10,000 premium, but sometimes maybe if you pick one of these nicer lots, it's going to be a $40,000 or $60,000 lot premium. During COVID, NB Homes at Heartland, they charged all the way up between $150,000 to $200,000 for a lot premium. So it's like really crazy that, you know, a builder can say, hey, we're going to start here, but we're going to start at 1.2, but you might actually end up at 1.5. So buyers really need to know that. And when you go on the MLS and you search for homes, a lot of times you do have to read if it says it's already been completed or it's yet to be completed, and read the description, because that's how you're going to figure out, is this a spec home where this is the final price, or is this the base price? Because I did a mistake actually recently where I sent one over. I knew their budget was 1.2 and it was like 1.15, and I thought it was like a spec home, and I sent it. I'm like, oh great, I found one for you. And then come to find out, he was like, no, the builder's not even going to build a house unless they're minimum 1.45. And then I looked kind of stupid. So, you know, in front of my buyer. So you definitely want to just do your research. Besides a lot premium, there's something called elevation options. So what is that? Elevation sounds weird, but it's basically the facade of the home. It's like, is it going to be a brick front? Is it going to be stone? Is there going to be a water table? Is it going to have a full porch versus no front porch? They could go from elevation A, which could be 0 options or $0, all the way up to elevation H, which is $25,000. So again, these are things that can add up to a lot of money. Structural options is kind of is a difficult one, because buyers really have, you know, want these structural options, but they could also add up. So sometimes builders don't give finished basements. A finished basement could be $40,000, $50,000 to finish a basement. You know, do you want that study that comes standard converted into a full bedroom and a full bath? Well, that's going to be another $15,000. Or, you know, sometimes homes just don't really look good or make sense without the extension that you need for the morning room. Otherwise, it looks really tight. Well, how much is it? It's $25,000. So this is really like how homes can really add up. So you have to be mindful and make sure you tell your clients that just because someone says it starts at $899, you're definitely not going to end there. So once you add the structural options, finally, there's something called design center options. This is where the buyer can go to usually a showroom where they are presented with a million different options. What, you know, are you going to go with granite, or are you going to go with quartz? Or are you going to go with quartz level 1, 3, or 5? Or are you going to do hardwood floors on your main level? Or are you going to do carpet? You know, what level cabinets are you going to do? So, you know, basically I've said, here's the base price, and you add lot premiums, elevation, structural, design. That's 4 extra factors that go into the final price. So those are all the things. When you say these things too in front of a buyer, they're going to know like, oh, she's done new construction. She knows what she's talking about. So, you know, you want to take the time to explain it, but when you use certain words like this, I think they're going to be like, okay, I think she knows what she's talking about. I want to use her. So they're going to start to feel more comfortable. But just make sure, a lot of buyers just really have no clue. They think that they're just going in and paying that price. And then, so those are the additions. And then basically I tell them there are subtractions. So there's usually 1 or 2 subtractions from that price. So the first one is builder incentives. I always ask, what are the builder incentives? I make sure I ask in front of the client. they are things like, hey, this month we're doing a special, we're giving you a finished basement, or this month we're building you a free deck, or it could be we're giving you 20,000 towards design center options. So these are builder incentives, and they come and go based on, the time frame or whatever it may be. Keep in mind, sometimes builders have quotas that they have to meet by the end of the month, or by the end of a quarter, or by the end of the year. So not always, it depends on the market, but they may be more willing to negotiate a little bit when they have to meet these quotas. So like I said, the builder incentives come and go. Almost every builder seems to have lender credits, lender incentives. So what they do is they partner with a lender, and they say, hey, if this buyer works with my lender and or title company, you will get 5,000 towards closing costs. Or I think I came across one recently that was $30,000, and it pretty much covered all their closing costs, which was amazing. So it really varies what these lender credits are. So always have to ask what these are too. And when you ask these simple things in front of your buyer, again, it makes it look like you know what you're talking about and that you're advocating for them. So just make sure you ask about these things. Should you use the builder's lender, or should you, recommend an outside lender? I would say 9 out of 10 times my buyers end up using the builder's lender. It's because the lender gives you such a high closing credit assistance, plus their rates are overall pretty competitive, that outside lenders have a hard time matching the closing cost assistance that they're getting. But I've had a few times where a lender has been able to either match the closing cost credit, or they are able to give them a lower rate than what the builder is giving, enough so that it offset the closing cost assistance. Sometimes I've had other times where a buyer will get an outside quote and then give it to the builder's lender, and the lender will match the credit. So, or match the quote. So, definitely you don't have to be locked in with the builder's lender. I have found in my experience, it may be different for others, but sometimes I think the builder's lender, because, they're like a default with the buyer, they may not be as proactive or responsive, I think, with the buyer, because they know it's like I said, it's like a shoe-in, and they know they have this person and they want the credit. So sometimes I found the outside lenders to be a little bit more responsive and proactive, but they, at the end of the day, they still get the job done. All right, so let's talk about the process of buying new construction. So basically, you want to make sure you go to try to get to the first appointment with your client. The builders are very strict. Some, especially Miller and Smith, they have like a sign that they post everywhere. If you're not here with your agent, the agent will not be included in this, sale for you, or whatever it is. So the first thing is you really want to be present, but I'll go more into that too. But basically, you want to talk to you bring your clients through, and the first start of the process is the pricing and the contract meeting. So the first thing that they do is, if your buyer is interested, you can sit down with the sales agent and ask for a pricing appointment. And what they do is, on a computer, they will literally show you what lots are available, tell you what the lot premiums are, ask you what the elevation options you're going to go with. Do you want that covered patio, or do you want the deck? Do you want the finished basement? Do you want the fireplace? They're going to go over all the structural options with you, because those are the bulk of the fees anyway. And so then they'll do a printout of how much everything costs, and then they'll send it home with the buyer to think about. Or maybe the buyer will be willing to move forward right then and there. Who knows? But that's basically what the first step is, the pricing appointment.
Hey, Jen.
And
sorry to interrupt, but I know you mentioned you may have a PowerPoint. Is that later, or did you want to share?
I'm sorry. I have it now.
Thanks, Jen.
Do you want me to share my screen?
If you're more comfortable with that. I just know you had one, so I didn't want you to forget.
Yeah, there it is. All right. It's pretty simple. It's like literally 2 slides. Thanks for reminding me. Okay, so I did all of number 1 already, and I'm on number 2. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So after they print everything out, they can go home and think about it. And then if they want to move forward, there's a couple different ways. The builder will either A, send it to your buyer to DocuSign, or they will go over the contract page by page in their office and explain everything, and then either have them sign there or go home and DocuSign. A lot of times I felt like in the past, the builder or the sales agent would go page by page, but nowadays I'm finding that they're just kind of sending a contract over to the client to like read over. And it's very long. It's like 30 to 50 pages, and buyers are overwhelmed. So then what they do is they send it to you, and they're going to say, can you help me with this? Or what does this mean? Or can you summarize? And there's just so much to know. So what I do is I definitely recommend people to read over a builder contract. Probably read it at least, I don't know, across different builders. Like I would probably read it all the way through at least 3 or 4 times all the way through. After that, I feel like they're very kind of boilerplate across the builder wording. So I think you're okay, but I think you definitely need to have a good understanding, because your buyers are definitely going to ask you like to summarize or help them understand. And so what I'll do is I'll go and, now, before, like I said, I used to read it all the way through, but now I just kind of skim over it because, like I said, they're similar, but I will just highlight things that they should know. So things like, so what they do, the builder has this written where basically it protects them. It's a builder contract. It has everything in there that will protect them. So for example, almost every builder contract says they have up to 2 years to deliver that home. So even though you go in there January and they say, hey, the delivery is going to be August, September, end of August, early September, in their contract, they have 2 years. So if things happen, there's supply chain issues, there's all these things, the buyer can't go back and like try to sue them or anything. The other thing that they do a lot of in the contract is exceptions. Like, if we deliver a home that's different than what you saw in the model home, like the granite will be different, or maybe the landscaping is different, we'll do our best to get you something as similar or as close to what you saw in the model, or outside with the landscaping. But if we don't have the product, we're going to substitute for something similar, if not better. So things like, there's a lot of language like that about how, basically just covering themselves. So just make sure you read through the contract. Another big thing is some builders will include a finance contingency in there where they say you have 45 days to make application and get approved, and all of that, and you're covered. But a lot of builders, most builders, I would say, do not have a finance contingency. So they don't care if you have a home to sell. They don't care about those things. You just have to have the money by closing, and that's it. And if you can't close, you could forfeit that deposit, and the builder has every right to go after and keep your deposit. So you really have to keep that in mind. And the deposits, the earnest money deposits for the builder to start building your house is can really vary. It could be as low as, here, just give us a $10,000 check or a $15,000 check. But sometimes it could be as high as 10,000, or sorry, 10%. So, when you're buying a house that's 1.2 million or whatever, you're giving them at contract 120 grand. So just keep that in mind. And basically, I've had situations where some builders try to be very understanding. I've heard of very many situations where builders have returned the earnest money deposit if somebody got super sick and had cancer, or somebody lost their job. But I've also had situations where a builder just was like, sorry. So I had one this year actually where the woman was told that her pregnancy was so high risk, they told her that she should abort, and if she didn't, she would most likely die, and she needed to put her affairs in order just in case. Well, it was a very like stressful situation. And the builder was like, I'm really sorry, shit happens and we're going to keep your deposit. It was really bad. So they did come back later, like a week later, and say, hey, you know, if you buy a house with us within the next year and a half, we will, you know, we're going to keep your deposit, but we will allow you to use that deposit towards one of our new homes in a different community. But past that year and a half, like, we're going to keep the deposit. So I think it is a little case by case. I had another situation where the guy did not really qualify for the loan ultimately, and he went with an outside lender. And I would honestly say it kind of was his fault, because he really dragged his feet. Like, he was not quick about getting his documents in. He just took forever. He switched at the last minute, didn't communicate. Actually, he switched lenders twice. And in this instance, I feel like the builder could have kept his EMD, but they actually were, I mean, he and I had to fight it, but ultimately they did return it. So I think it just depends on the situation. So just make sure you keep that in mind. Now, the other thing about the price negotiation is, you know, buyers are always like, hey, you know, can you negotiate price for me? I'm like, of course, you know, I'll try to, but really depends on the market. If the market is hot, like especially during COVID, where literally if the buyer's asking for a 10K reduction and 30 minutes later, they can find another buyer who's willing to pay the same price, there is literally going to be no price reduction at all. Now, if there are, obviously it's a different market, things are slower, they're going to be a lot more willing to negotiate price with you. And I feel like the sales agents, for the most part, kind of know what range they're able to go. But at the end of the day, they still have to ask their upper management. But yeah, that's something that you want to advertise, I guess, or like say to your client, like, this is something that I will do for you, or I will try very hard to do for you. But again, it really depends on the market. All right, so the next one is pre-construction. So pre-construction, basically, some builders skip this and some builders keep it, but it really is like a very preliminary upfront meeting where you're meeting at the builder's, at the sales office, and you're meeting with the construction manager, and he's just basically going over the site plan and the plot, and he's talking about, you know, here's the topography of your home, and this is, you know, the grading, and it slopes down by, you know, 5 degrees or 10 degrees from the back of the house all the way to the edge of your property where the silk fencing is. And like, you know, so they go over all the preliminary information. They may also go over like where you decide to put the recessed lighting, where you decide to put the cables, where you're going to put your pendant lights. So they may go over all the electrical that you've already selected. And that's another part so I talked about lot premiums, elevation options, structural, and design center. There's actually also an electrical options meeting as well. So you go to your electrical appointment where you talk to them about where you want to put your Cat 6 or whatever, or where you want to, if you want to spend money on extra electrical, or where you, all of that stuff. So that could be another additional cost if you want to put in speakers, but generally that is not as much as some of the other ones. Like I think I said, lot premiums can go anywhere from 0 to 200,000. Elevation can go from 0 to usually like 25,000. Structural options can go 0 to 150,000 or something. In design center, usually people stay anywhere from, I don't know, 15,000 for a townhouse, I would say, all the way to like, I don't know, people can go crazy if they want 100, 150,000. But those things really add up. But so yeah, the pre-construction meeting just goes over like the overall before they even start construction and allows the buyer to ask questions. After that, there is a pre-drywall meeting. So pre-drywall meeting is basically right before the drywall goes up. So you go through, the construction manager is going to walk through the property with you. You're going to be able to see all the electrical, all the plumbing. Sometimes buyers will take the time to take pictures of where the pipes are so they can remember not to, you know, nail a hole in that area later on. But they basically just kind of like again, they're going to physically show you this time where you selected light pendants and electrical and recessed lights and different things to go, because sometimes for whatever reason, a builder may somehow confuse it and they put it in the wrong spot or whatever it may be. But this is also an opportunity where you can tell your buyers, if you want to get an outside home inspector to come, they need to come right before the pre-drywall meeting. Because once the walls are up, I mean, it's not like the inspector is going to be able to see behind the walls. So the builder does not always give you a lot of advance notice. You and the buyer will find out maybe a day or 2 or 3 days before. So you got to act quick. But I would say the majority of my clients do not get a outside home inspector, but some do. And one thing that you have to know is when builders build a house, they do go through permitting, and they also go through the approval process with the county. So they have to get approval for the electrical, permitted for the electrical, the plumbing, all of that. So at every step, they are getting approval and they're getting permitted. So at the end of the day, they're not going to build you like a completely faulty house. It has to be up to code. They have standards that they still have to meet. But a home inspector can still go and point out maybe things that they feel like is code. A lot of times the builder may say, well, no, actually, we're within the variance of what's allowed, things like that. But a home inspector will, maybe there's a little bit, like there's a crack, or maybe there's things that could have been done a little differently and better. And usually I found that the home inspector, for my personal experience, has not found anything major, but they do find a few things here and there that, for example, like a standalone tub, those are very, very expensive. Like he discovered there was like cracks like in the back, because I think someone had sat on it. So there was like a crack that you wouldn't have seen. But that in itself, they had to replace the whole tub. That's, I don't know, that's a lot of money, So they take the time to really look at it carefully. And so, I think it's still beneficial, and a lot of buyers will do it to have peace of mind. Like for me personally, I bought several new construction. I've not done it for like condos or townhomes, but if it's for a single family, that's like my dream home that I'm going to live in for a long time, I think I would do it just for extra peace of mind. But yeah, just be made aware of that element, that you can invite someone to do that. Not finally, but there's also, this is also important for pre-drywall. Pre-drywall usually happens 60 days before closing. That's a very important thing to remember. And that's because a lot of people want to sell their house in order to buy the new house. So you got to figure out the timing of it. So if someone says, okay, pre-drywall is going to be scheduled for August 15, you as a realtor will have an idea that generally maybe around mid-October, the house is going to be done. That way you can start helping them list the house, when you want to put it on, and how, depending on days on market, you figure out when you want to put the house on the market, or maybe you should have already put the house on the market. I don't know. And then you can help them figure out the rent back situation up to 2 months, so that you don't have to have them move twice. Because the worst thing is you don't plan it properly, and then let's say you didn't get as long as a rent back as you needed, and the house isn't done, or there's a delay. So for me, I always put like another extra 2 weeks or even a month delay with the builder, because you never know. And then they end up having to move twice because of you. And again, there's no guarantee. I mean, I generally found that if you're one of the first buyers in a brand new community, there's a lot of growing pains for that builder, and understanding, what's over there and the utility process, and they don't have any of that infrastructure in place. So you could be delayed. I had to live with my sister once for 2 months because there was a delay. I was the second one to buy. But if a community is already built and they give you a schedule, I feel like the builders are usually on track within a week or 2. So just keep that in mind. Again, usually it's 2 months before closing, and that's how you help your sellers figure out when they need to put the house on the market. Now, then there's the home orientation walkthrough. It's usually a week before closing. The house should look great. This construction manager is going to go over with the buyer all the different systems, how it works. Here's the filter. These are the hose bibs, so you can winterize the house. These are the warranties. You know, there's 1-year craftsmanship with the builder for any issues. Sometimes there's a 2-year appliance warranty. Almost every builder will have a 10-year structural and foundational warranty. So they're going to go over all of those details. But I've been through it a million times. So what I do is I ask the buyer, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I just walk around and blue tape any issues that I see? And they're like so happy. I feel like that's where I earn my value, when they see me doing all this stuff for them. So it really depends on the construction manager. Some are like, yeah, go for it. Here's the blue tape. And they give it to me. And some are like, no, you have to tell me everything that you're going to do, and I'm going to write it down. So it just depends on who it is. But basically, I walk around the house. You don't want to be like right next to every wall and everything and like looking at it. But, you know, they generally say 5 feet, 6 feet away. If you can see imperfections, you should blue tape. And a lot of times buyers don't understand. They've never been through new construction before, so they don't know they're even allowed to ask for things to be redone. But I always tell my buyer, yeah, they want to deliver a good product for you. They want good ratings on their survey, because sometimes it's connected to their commissions and their bonuses. They want to have good ratings from you. So when you ask for some things to be redone, they'll do it, you know? So if you see a little dent in the refrigerator or the hood vent, can you ask them to replace it? Yes. Can you, I look for a lot of clean lines. I can't stand like messy craftsmanship, like along the side of the shower. They don't use blue tape when they paint or anything. They'll just like freehand it. And so it's like squiggly, or there'll be grout or caulking messes, drywall dents, smudges because the cleaners came through or some engineer came through and like touched the wall, like things like that. Maybe there's like a drop of dry paint on the carpet. Those are all the things that you want them, that you would blue tape for people. And then literally right before closing, they do a final walkthrough to make sure any of the bigger issues that the construction manager wrote down has been addressed, and also that all the blue tape issues have been addressed as well. And then you go to closing and celebrate. So that's basically the basics on the process. So let's talk about how to get clients now for new construction. So first, you have to ask if they're interested. Like, this is the part that I think is so like mind-blowing to me. I talk to other agents. I'm like, oh, like, do you ever ask your clients if they want new construction? They're like, no. I'm like, why not? There's low inventory. First there's low inventory, but a lot of people want new things. They don't want an old home. And first, so you have to ask your clients if they want it. I've had clients where I've brought it up too, and they're like, no, I never even thought of it. I was always just thinking about resale. I'm like, yeah. So that's the first step, is just to ask for it. Another step is, I am very good about keeping my eyes peeled. That's how I bought one of the homes that I bought. I saw that a sign went up and it said like near new metro community. And I was like, cha-ching, that sounds like a very good investment area, gonna make money. I signed up. I was the second one to buy. That was for me, but you always, especially like, I'm a big believer in like farming your area. Keep an eye on like what's around when you're driving. If you see a sign pop up, sometimes it might just say, something construction, and you just don't know, there's no way to get information. You can start Googling like, new build or new construction on Old Ryan Road or something like that. But if nothing pops up, you basically have to wait for a sign of the builders to pop up. But once it does, I'm like on it. I'm on it like a fly. Like, I will start calling and like figuring out what's going up there. Builders will keep a lot of information close to their chest. So sometimes they'll send out an email blast and say, or you can go on the website, find them, and it says sign up to be a VIP list. I always sign up for the VIP list, especially if it's a brand new community. The reason being is if you are one of the first people to get an appointment and to buy in a new construction community, the prices are pre-construction pricing. They are a lot lower than the people that are going to be buying when it's 75% built through. That's because they're trying to, you know, they're doing their sales, and I'm sure you guys know after 3 to 5 sales or 5 to 7 sales or whatever it is, they up the price. And after another 5 to 7 sales, they up the price. So by the time the community is fully built, the person who's bought early has already made a lot of money. I've even seen agents do this where they will be first to buy in a good community that they know is going to have value, and then literally by towards the end they will sell it and they've just pocketed $150,000. So those are some tricks for not only for realtors but for your buyers. Like, let them know if you're first in line, you can get better pricing. But what I do is I will sign up for the VIP list, and usually I will do it if I have a client. But there have been times where I don't even have a client in mind, but I just know it's going to be a good community and I need to secure that appointment. So I've had myself and David, one time I had 3 VIP appointments. I took like one of the first 3 appointments, and I was like 2 of me and 1 of him. And like an agent called me and was like, you're in here twice. You can't be in here twice. And I was like, sorry. But I grab it and then I call my clients and be like, look, I have this fantastic opportunity. Like, this is usually what happens by the end of the community. You've already made money. Like, you want to be first, blah, blah, blah. And then I get the appointment for them. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but whatever. I did what I needed to do to get them the appointment. So I just did one recently for South 620 over in Aldi. And I was the second appointment. And I asked them, how many appointments do you have after me? They said, we have 230 people. So if you miss that opportunity at the beginning, later on, you're going to be number 231. So that's why I get on the VIP list and I just grab it. And during COVID, it was super competitive. They literally said, sales are going to go out. You're on the VIP list. They'll send you an email. They're like, we're going to start sales sometimes at the end of August. And they don't even tell you what day. They're like, just keep your eyes peeled. So like, I remember there was this hot community. I was literally like checking my email, like constantly for like 2-3 days straight. Cause I got some intel that it was going to be like within the next 3 days. But if you don't grab it, it's like, you're going to be number 30, and people who are already on the list, they've already decided they want to buy in that community or something. So you're not going to get the best lot, the best pricing. So whatever. So that's that. Another thing that I do is I take a lot of video and post on social media and elsewhere when I'm doing new construction. Obviously, if you don't have clients, you can just start visiting and taking video and like posting about it. But almost always, I never make independent trips just to take video. I'm always already there. I'm already there with another client. And your buyers will sometimes tell you about a new community and you're like, oh crap, I didn't know about that one, and then you go online really quick and research so you can like sound like you kind of knew about it. Or you just try to learn about it as you go. But when I'm already at the house, I take video, and like those videos do very well because people love seeing homes that are beautiful and new and staged well. So the video just kind of like the house just sells itself. So take the video, put it on social media. I've gotten several people reach out to me for new construction because they saw it on my YouTube. So that's another good area to put it on. And then this is what you have to do, or what you need to do is you have to sell the client. Like if they call you for new construction, they're doing it because they're not sure and they need some advice or whatever. And even when you're trying to work with another buyer who may or may not be interested in it, you have to sell why they need you. That's the big thing, because when people walk in, they see a sales agent and they see all the builders people. They're like, why do I need an agent? So many homes, I think, get sold with new construction without an agent because they don't see the need. So you have to sell yourself why they need you. Talk about how you'll help them understand the contract. You'll do price negotiation for them, that you will, you know, walk through the entire buying process, the contract meeting, the pre-construction meeting, the pre-drywall meeting, the walkthrough meeting, the closing, that you're going to, just like you're going to help them with a resale, you will also help them with new construction. And best practice is you should be part of their entire process anyway. If you're getting a commission for it and you're their realtor, you should be helping them. I think one of the reasons why the builders, there's two reasons why I feel like builders have literally cut down the commissions for agents, is because so many agents have literally shown up for just the initial meeting to sign themselves up, and then they've disappeared, and then they've come and they collect their commission at the end. I have so many buyers who are like, well, I bought a home last time and my realtor like came, but they didn't help me at all. I'm like, what do you mean they didn't help you? They're like, yeah, they just came the first time and then that was it. And I'm like, that's giving ourselves a bad name. Like, yeah, why do they need you for new construction if you're really not going to help them through the process, if you're not going to read the contract, if you're not going to help them through the process? If you're getting a commission for it, you should be working for it. So don't just show up the first day and then get your money at the end. Like, that's not good practice. Also, it will give realtors a bad name. Again, like, why do they need you? So you need to sell why you should be involved. And again, the other thing is, the second reason why I feel like they lowered the commission is because I actually asked a sales agent, you know, like Envy and Ryan Homes, they give like a $5,000 flat fee. You know, I've sold like many in Heartland, and these are $1.4 million, and I'm getting $5,000 for it. And I'm like, why did you guys do this? Like, this is terrible. And they're like, well, you know, you guys just give all your money back to the buyer anyway. So why would we give you 2.5% or 2% when, you know, you're giving it all to them anyway? So we're just going to give you 5,000 at the end because that's all you're going to keep. I'm like, that's not true. That's not true how I do it. But, you know, again, this is like agents making it hard with other agents. Like, it's making it harder for us to you know, sustain our livelihood by doing these kinds of crappy things where we just like don't even help buyers through the process. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. You need to make the first appointment for your clients, like I said, because some builders are very strict. And what I do is I always say, hey, can I make the appointment for you? You know, I can say this because it's true. And I'm like, you know, I know a lot of sales agents in the community. I have a good relationship, so I can make the appointment for you a lot easier than maybe sometimes it's hard for you to reach a sales agent. I can get one for you very easily. So I'd say things like that. Or if they're like willing to work with me, I will email, call, or text the sales agent and say, hey, just so you know, I would like an appointment, and my clients are Tom and Jan Smith. I will let them know who the names of the buyers are, and I ask them to register me. That's like super important, because if they could go in on a Saturday and a weekend when they're just driving around and they're like, oh, let's stop by here, and they sign in and they don't sign in with a realtor, like, you may be out of a deal. So I always, not only do I make sure I proactively email, text, or call the agent and let them know, like, these people are my clients, or I will tell my buyers, like, if I'm out of town or if I have a schedule conflict, or you just end up popping into new construction, please make sure you let them know you have a realtor, or you write down my name, because later on a builder may not allow you to add one in. So that's like super important for you to do. The other thing too is, what if they've already talked to the sales agent? So I've had clients where they didn't even think to use a realtor. So they've already like talked to the sales agent many, many times. They've done a lot of contract talking, negotiation, or whatever. And then they're like, there comes a point where they're like, uh-oh, maybe I should get a realtor. I don't really know what I'm doing. So they call you, right? So they're calling you because they're not sure and they need help. So at that point, I literally say to them, okay, if you want me involved, you need to stop talking to the sales agent. No more talking, no more communication. Let me do it. Because if the builder or the sales agent does not feel like if they feel like they could get the contract signed without you, they're not going to include you. You're probably just going to be an extra headache for them anyway. Or I really do not know to this day if sales agent gets more money, if an agent is or is not involved. I don't know. But the point is, the buyer technically does not need a realtor, right? So it's kind of like, never mind, I won't go into detail, but so just tell them to stop talking to the sales agent and get yourself inserted into the deal. Sometimes they've gotten so far that the sales agent will say, well, you're not the procuring cost. And, you know, we're almost to contract, and they may not allow you, but, you know, sometimes you ask your client, well, do you feel comfortable moving forward with an agent or without? And it's like, yeah, probably without. Then you could call the sales agent and say, my client has stated they do not feel comfortable moving forward without a realtor. If you say that, the sales agent, I feel like, is going to say, okay, fine, because they'd want the deal to happen instead of just letting it go, right? So those are just certain things that I do to like make sure that I'm like included. And like I said, I still help them throughout the entire process. So let me see, hold on. Okay. The other thing is, okay, so let's talk about getting builder listings and opportunities. So I'll tell you a story for me, and it may or may not apply, or hopefully you can make this happen. But I'm very fortunate that I live right next to Lennar. They're building a brand new community, and I used to bring in a lot of clients, and I got very, very friendly and nice with the sales agents. So a lot of builders have in-house realtors that enter the MLS listings for them. Lennar is one where they don't do that. They have allowed their sales agents to pick whoever realtors they want to enter the MLS listings for them. Like everybody on this call is now going to approach every single Lennar community around. But and I didn't even know this at the time, but she approached me and said, hey, I know you've been, you know, bringing value and working really hard to like help sell our product. You obviously know it very well. Will you do some courtesy listings for me? And I'm like, sure. So I only did like some for her. And then another agent did some for another sales agent used her own realtor. So we split it. But basically she said, you know, if somebody calls you, they don't have an agent, you're welcome to work with them. If you want to do open houses, you can do it every weekend if you want. I don't care. So it was like this fantastic opportunity. One time I remember doing an open house and somebody was like called. Oh, and then she even said, I said, well, you know, usually the broker will put in like, please call the sales agent, don't call me, right? And I was like, well, if they call the sales agent, how am I ever going to get their business? So she said, you could put your number in there. I'm like, okay, sweet. So I put my number. So when buyers would call me, I would say, hey, are you working with an agent? And then try to get business that way. And even one time I posted an open house and somebody called me because they couldn't find the model home. And I like locked up the house really quick and I caught up with them and I'm like, hey, you know, so let me help you through the process and whatever. And they're like, sure. So I remember getting that business. But the biggest thing for me in that advantage was the fact that they would tell me, hey, in 2 days, we're going to drop the price. And Lennar was doing this crazy special where they literally were trying to meet year-end goals and they were dropping prices of these condos. I'm not even joking, by like 60 to 80,000. It was crazy. And I know in my neighborhood, there's a ton of investors and they were accepting investors. So the bulk of the money that I made through this deal, this opportunity, was I told the price drop opportunity to the people on my farm. So I wrote to the Facebook forum and I said, hey, I really don't do this. I really don't post about this stuff, but this is such a great opportunity. I just could not keep myself from telling you such amazing news. And, you know, this is what's happening. Please DM me if you want more information. I think I had 40 people DM me about this. And I ended up, you know, saying, well, please give me your email. Let me, you know, send you like the price sheets and different things like that. So in 1 month, Lennar was doing like 2.5% commission plus 5% bonus for every sale. I think I did 10 to 12 that 1 month. it was a very nice month for me. So that was a great opportunity. But again, if you see a price drops or good deals like that you're hearing of, go through your client list and present it to them. It's also an opportunity for you to touch them. Like, we're always making excuses to like get in touch with them, right? Every once in a while. This is a great way for you to add value and say, hey, just so you know, I heard about this amazing deal that's going on. Would you be interested? They may ignore you, or you may have a few that say, yeah, actually tell me about it. So go through your client list and do something like that. And then on my thing, I also said, just make sure that you find out if there's in-house realtors. And if not, ask them if you could do open houses for them. Ask them if you could do brokers opens. Like, I think when you're there and you get friendly and you know, I think like Ali was saying that in the other construction when he did, when you offer value and you're trying to help them, they will, you know, reward you sometimes with these kinds of opportunities. So you have to make these things happen for yourself too. All right, so that's it. I don't have anything else. If you guys have questions, sorry I went over, but I know I talked a little fast, but
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. So questions, anybody? I know, is Summer still on here? Summer, I know you had a question before we even started. Do you want to ask?
Oh, no. Hey, Jen, that was a good presentation. No, I would just say, I just commented, I said, that's horrible when she said that the builder took that's horrible karma for that builder. But no, aside from that, my only question is, I have this coming up in a couple of days here. For the final inspection with the inspector, you do the blue tape. Are you writing all the imperfections on an addendum, or what's
yeah, so the construction manager will write the major, like the bigger things on a piece of paper. And then before closing, the buyer has to sign off an initial that all those things were done. But if it's just like the cosmetic blue taping, they don't write that necessarily down. You just know that the blue tape is gone because the contractor has come through and fixed it. And then when they fix it, they take the blue tape off.
Okay. So when we have our own private inspector that's coming. So when he goes in on Monday, he's just doing the regular inspection, right? Of the, like, just a regular inspection that he would do just to make sure everything's working, right? I mean,
So this is the outside inspector?
Yes.
Yeah, he shouldn't pull off any blue tape or anything. He's just looking to see if everything's been done properly, like if it looks good. Like, he would just do an inspection like he would any resale home.
Gotcha. Okay.
At the walkthrough, what you were asking about earlier, Summer, was like when they come to do the final walkthrough and they're doing like the punch list items interior wise. What Jen was saying is, yeah, when they finish stuff and they pull off the tape, one of the ways to kind of make sure that it's done is obviously you have the list, but have the pictures as well. Take pictures or video of it so that you have ahead of time, because once they pull off the tape, it's hard to remember where it was, and maybe they didn't fix it or they didn't fix it to the buyer's liking. So having that video or picture of it is helpful as well for the blue tape stuff. And oftentimes they don't finish it in time. They will many times, but sometimes they don't until afterwards. So Jen, how do you deal with that if they don't finish it in time before closing?
Yeah, so what they do is, again, they note what hasn't been done, and then they'll come and do it after the fact. I mean, usually the people are around still for like a while, 30, 60, 90 days. So either you can just grab them, or you have them note on a sheet that you basically don't initial that they fixed it, and they'll come and do it after the fact. I don't think I've ever had any buyer ever call me and say they didn't fix the things that they said they were going to fix. I think really generally for the most part, the builders really do try to make the clients happy. Jen Mack has her hand up.
Awesome class, Jen. Thank you so much. I have a question for you. When we're setting expectations with clients about like surprises that could happen at the end, like the only example I always give my agents is one time we showed up and the electrical box was like in the front yard, and I had not noticed that on the plans. And so now I know to like triple check that and always ask to make sure if there's going to be any surprises. Are there any other examples like that you've had that have happened where your buyer was disappointed where you would advise us to make sure that we're asking about that on the front end? Can you think of anything at all?
I mean, I feel like a lot of times, sometimes they don't put the pendants or the lighting in the right spot, but I mean, there's not anything typical, like something that happens all the time to be aware of. The biggest issue I saw right a week before was the flooring of a bathroom was completely tilted. I mean, it was obvious. My buyer had walked through it, didn't even notice it. I did. And when you looked, all the contractors tried to cover it up, and the construction manager didn't even know. But sometimes it's case by case. I don't think there's any one thing that like happens consistently from my experience.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody asked if the pre-drywall is with a regular home inspector or if it's a specific new construction inspector. Yeah, it should be somebody who is, I think there's actually a license, and you get licensed and certified to be a new construction inspector. Like I have one if anyone needs their contact. I don't think it's just anybody.
Denise, you had your hand up?
Yes, I had a question. You mentioned about the financing that some builders don't have that included in their contract. Can I just add a financing addendum from like the regular sale into the contract or make it contingent?
No, they won't. It's the builder's contract. It's like either you take it or you leave it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, especially with a contingency like that, it's their way or the highway.
Thank you.